the suppression of the use of marijuana and of the forces lurking behind it are the most important jobs this department is now engaged in. In 1930, the records on marijuana in the Washington office of the Narcotics Division scarcely filled a small folder like this. Today, they fill cabinets.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Coloradians and everyone that's smart enough to listen from the outside.
One of the most amazing plants we've ever discovered.
The pot party, the trippers, the grasshoppers, the hip ones, all gathered in secrecy and flying high as a kite.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another week of Stoned Appetit. With your host, as always, it's me, Kip, and across the screen, I got my boy CB. CB, how are you today, my friend?
Dude, doing great. Had yesterday off, went up to Steamboat for the weekend, and now we're sliding back into a podcast with a very exciting guest. My bad.
There you go. I'm not sure what that noise was, but there is a little bit of static in between us, obviously due to the surroundings of the world, COVID protocols and things of that nature. We're still doing some virtual episodes. So we're pretty fired up because we did happen to wrangle a pretty big fish today, Chris. Before we get into the introduction for our guest and the company that he works with, I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors. Obviously, our guest is going to know these sponsors as we talk about cannabis industries, but I want to give a shout out to our friends over at Seed and Smith Cannabis. Local run company. They have two different dispensaries. Location at 1413 Hecla Way up in Louisville. As y'all know, it's one of the beacons that's been trying to help out in the community after the fires. If you want to go swing through there, make donations, also go through and scoop some of their dank ass flower. I did a grow tour last week. It was popping. This is the season. You want to get over there, try their flower. Y'all know we love that dart pen. The thing is tried and true. They've got the live resin going in those things now. So the live series is active in the dart cartridges, but I'm very, very high on their flower this season, Chris. So that's one of our big shout out to that sponsor. And then another shout out to a flower king themselves. And that's our friends over at Cali's Cannabis. Different locations across the metro. So no matter where you go, there's a Stoned Appetit location for you. Cali's has 3 locations, as all of our friends know. It's up in North Glen. They've got the location in Rhino, right there next to Rye Society at 31st and Larimer. And then their third location at Jason Street, or what I like to call the Canosa and 8th Avenue right there. I-25 has been busted due to the road work, so you would have to navigate the federal route to hit up that location. But the good thing about Cali's vibing right now, in addition to the regular deals of the day and the fantastic rewards program, Charles is back in charge of the grow over there. So they're producing high quality flower again. There was a little gap in there. So for those that may have taken us for our word, but swung through during their intermediary time, swing back through. Charles is doing some excellent work. They've got everything from Green Dot and our friends over at Ripple. They've got Coda bars, but they also have their excellent flower on the shelf, platinum all the way down. There's something you can get out of there with. Woo! All right, those are our ads. We love our sponsors. We love our products. Speaking of loving our products, I'm pretty fired up about today's guest. For those listening at home, y'all have seen us post about it on our social media. We always are high on the Ripple brand edibles. They have the fast-acting powders. They have the gummies with a wide variety of flavors, more of the low dosage. So if you're one of the high dosage folks, you may want to take a back seat on this one. But we're going to talk today with the Director of Research and Development from the Ripple team, Mr. Keith, I'm going to fuck this up, Woelfel. Is that correct?
You got it. Nice job. Most people don't get that right. Kudos to you.
God. Chris, did you hear that? I got it right.
All right, kid. Off for a good start.
Yeah. Well, Keith, we appreciate you joining us. Obviously, I tried to give a little bit of an introduction, but we like to kind of get to know all of our guests the same way, and that's by letting Chris take the reins and Kip shutting up for a little while. So, Chris, without further ado, start us a great episode on the pod.
All right, Keith, big hard-hitting question here. Are you a transplant or a native to Colorado?
I am absolutely a transplant. You're going to hear me, as you hear me speak, you're going to be figuring, where is that accent from? I'll cover right to the chase. That's a Jersey accent. I'm born and bred, and I came here 6 years ago to get into the cannabis industry. And really in the earliest days of Ripple. before Ripple was a thing, is when I came on board.
Okay.
My background, I am a food scientist. And the next question is like, a what? Who becomes that on purpose? I was pre-med.
Dr. Alton Brown, one of our friends from the Food Network.
Well, actually, I've been in this field long enough. It was before that actually became a thing. I took it because I like to eat. The food science building was really close. I heard it was a good program, but I'm going to medical school. So what difference does it make? So to make a long story short, I went up, decided not to go to medical school, decided to see what this major is about. And here I am after a lot of years, a lot of different products in the marketplace. I am really glad I chose this path because I really love deep science. I really love product design, and I really love health and wellness. And that's what found me into the cannabis space. Prior to this, yes, Kip.
Are you a doctor though?
No, I have a master's in chemistry.
Okay. I thought you were saying that you opted for like botany over like
No.
I wasn't sure if you went just a different doctorate route. Continue.
No, I wound up working for a couple of years and go back for master's in chemistry in food science because I really enjoy the field that much. My background and really what was hugely helpful for me before I got into the cannabis industry, I worked for large scale companies like Mars. And, you're looking at how to launch and design products on all aspects on doing it in depth before going to the marketplace. And that was enormous help from what do you do consumer, the technical part of things, the quality and food safety, all of that. And I did that for many years, both on the confectionery side of things, but also on things like cocoa flavanols and all things around health and wellness. And when I caught wind of a company looking for a food scientist looking to make cannabis water soluble back in 2015, it stopped me dead in my tracks. I'm like, what? And I was very enamored by it. And I was like, that is so incredibly progressive. Let me find out more about that. So that's what made me an enormous leap from New Jersey and being well established all my life to come over to Colorado. Colorado's awesome. Denver's wonderful. The space is wonderful to be in. Cannabis is, I love it. I can't say enough things about the innovation, the speed of innovation, the science behind our products as a whole, and where Colorado has led the rest of the United States is awesome to see. So that's my 2-minute background about who I am. I believe heavily in developing products and doing it right and having the science to both develop the products and the processes to create a very consistent experience to consumers and in depth, very, very much in depth at the molecular level to make sure the what you're getting as the consumer is the same experience every single time. And I'll talk to that more if you'd like as we dig into.
I mean, that's a hell of an elevator pitch. You did very well. You sold yourself very well.
I speak from the heart on this one, Kip. This is not BS. This is truly what makes me tick.
So, I mean, I know the feeling well. Like once you kind of get immersed in the cannabis industry, you fall even more in love with it. Were you a cannabis, I guess, were you a pothead growing up? Was the love for the plant or food sciences, did it derive from munchies in high school and college? What was your experience growing up?
My experience growing up is,
I mean, there's better pot in Jersey than there is in Mississippi, even if it's legal.
So one of the things I think this was my destiny because one of the first weeks I walked into Mars, I was watching the M&M line being made at scale. These things are made, you're making millions and millions of M&Ms per day. And I'll never forget, I looked at how chocolate is being made, and one of the components of chocolate is cocoa butter. I'm like, boy, that'd be such a natural fit. Taking cocoa butter, infusing cannabis in there, and boy, you got the perfect product because it's completely like you've got an awesome tasting product that'll just keep you bringing back for more. So it was my destiny in that. Where I stand today, I mean, I really believe cannabis, particularly around becoming high functioning and dealing with anxiety. And there are people in my life that are very much anxiety is a part of their life, and cannabis is an absolute, an enormous player to modulate down anxiety. And it has lots of positive impact and positive things to it versus the other things would be being used to modulate down anxiety. So I personally heavily believe in cannabis for a wide range of people. I am looking for the day where it's fully federally legal because I think it's the right thing to do.
All right.
Kip or Chris, looks like you got a question.
Oh yeah. So when you're talking about, first of all, where are these weed infused M&Ms? Because I would love a king size pack of that. But second of all,
I don't think the company would allow that, first off.
Let's do the
Minor
ball
details.
company just for faking it, Chris. We Sour Patch Kid is vicious in law room.
There might be a cease and desist happening there pretty quickly if you try to do it. But
I keep thinking Vice is going to try to come after me, and we're going to have to flex our lawyer on them. Shout out to my trademark lawyer. But
so Keith, you had mentioned that, about curbing anxiety and things like that. But just to kind of play devil's advocate, isn't there also signs that like marijuana use and stuff can increase anxiety? Like, what are you finding a balance, or is it about the right product? Or because sometimes I'll get anxious if I smoke a little too much or something like that.
Yes, being paranoid and being biphasic by nature for marijuana. I wish we could make that go away on how we create products. I think it tends on how much you use the product, honestly. Could in the future state, and I think we're getting there very quickly. I personally believe we are at the infancy on what cannabinoids can deliver, and is it getting the right range of cannabinoids, would say terpenes or other bolt-ons, if you will. So if you want relaxation, is it a mix of cannabinoids plus other things that give you relaxation? Right? Or if you want energy, balanced energy, is there things you mix in with other cannabinoids to mix? So is it THC, THCV plus, a natural source of caffeine. So I think there's other things we can modulate on to do that. But ultimately, I think that's the nature of THC. It is biphasic. So it's dose dependent on how it affects you.
Well, so one thing, you kind of mentioned, kind of bolting it on or locking it on. We recently had some conversations about this exact kind of methodology, but Ripple's already starting to kind of do that. Y'all recently released a brand new, variant or version of the Ripple with the CBN inclusion, kind of a bolt-on addition to help for the sleep, issues out there for those that may be looking for sleep or relief in that department. So it seems like it's kind of already well working in y'all's industry as well as in your department.
Right. And in the area of sleep, we're hearing one of the biggest complaints people have is either problems falling asleep or falling asleep and staying asleep, or if they're taking sleep aids such as melatonin, they wake up and they're groggy. So there's definitely a strong consumer need. And there is some early research that cannabinoids can help. CBN in conjunction with THC does seem to help people fall asleep. And we see there's enough of a need that people have been asking for it. That's why we created the product. I personally see this as the beginning stages. If you really want to have, this is where my passion for deep science comes in. There's a lot of research there that I think is still untapped to how do you create a product that helps promote sleep, that's safe, that's efficacious, and hits a broad range of people at the right dose. And I think we're at the earlier stages. I think, honestly, this industry is quick to make claims, often on lower amounts of research, and the research still needs to catch up. And it takes a long time to catch up with the research. A good research program can take at least a year or two from the time you start it to the time you get, the research in place and get the results. But I really firmly believe there is something there to be said with cannabis and THC and sleep and CBN. And that's why Ripple has put its foot forward in that area.
Okay, so with that being said, I've got a couple questions, and maybe we can dumb this down really quick. When you're talking about you've got CBD, you've got CBN, THC. So CBN doesn't have any psychoactive properties, right?
So the story goes.
Okay.
Now, many of your cannabinoids are claimed not to be psychoactive, but it's also dose dependent. And what other cannabinoids are you with? So you're talking psychoactive CB1 receptors versus CB2. And THC, I think in combination, THC obviously going to go more towards the CB1 receptors. CBN does have an affinity for CB1, but it's just lower. So I think in general, you could classify as not being psychoactive, but I think if you took enough CBN, you might start feeling it.
Right. And so that's just a general question that may provide some different type of information. But my thought on CBD is I'm sure there's some beneficial, effects of that product, but